The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed under the neon glow, but for Elias Kane, the world was a blur of betrayal and blood. He stumbled through an alley, clutching his side where a knife had bitten deep, his alpha pride shattered like the glass beneath his boots. Once a feared enforcer for the Cascadia Syndicate, Elias now ran from the very empire he'd built, hunted by his own. In the shadow of a dumpster, he collapsed, his vision fading. That's when he saw him, Jasper Lynn, the S-Alpha who'd sworn to destroy him. Jasper's silhouette was unmistakable, lean, sharp, with eyes that burned like embers in the dark. Elias braced for the killing blow, but instead, Jasper knelt, his voice low and urgent. "Pretend you're an Omega," he whispered, slipping a damp cloak over Elias's trembling shoulders. "It's the only way you'll live." Elias's world tilted. Jasper, his sworn enemy, the man who'd sabotaged his deals and exposed his secrets, was saving him. Why? Their history was a battlefield. Years of rivalry, of Jasper's quiet defiance against Elias's ruthless ambition. Yet here, in this filthy alley, Jasper's hands were steady, his touch almost tender as he bandaged Elias's wound with a torn strip of his own shirt. "Move," Jasper hissed, pulling him to his feet. "They're coming." They slipped through Seattle's underbelly, past flickering signs and abandoned warehouses, until they reached a safe house tucked beneath a freeway overpass. The space was sparse, a cot, a burner phone, a single bulb casting harsh shadows. Elias sank onto the cot, his alpha instincts screaming to fight, to dominate, but his body betrayed him. Jasper locked the door, his expression unreadable. "You're nobody now," he said, tossing Elias a bottle of water. "The Syndicate thinks you're dead. Keep it that way." Elias's laugh was bitter. "You think I'll play Omega for you? Cower and beg." His voice cracked, betraying the fear he refused to name. Alphas like him were born to lead, their pheromones a command that bent others to their will. S-Alphas like Jasper were different, subtle, strategic, their strength in precision, not force. Elias had always mocked Jasper's restraint, called him weak. Now, that weakness was his lifeline. Jasper crouched before him, their faces inches apart. "You don't get it, do you?" he said, his voice low, almost broken. "I bought you. Paid off the Syndicate's hitman with everything I had. You're mine now, Elias. Not as a trophy, because I couldn't let you die." His words hung heavy, a confession wrapped in defiance. Elias's chest tightened, caught between rage and something softer, something dangerous. The safe house became their fragile sanctuary. Days blurred into nights as Jasper tended Elias's wounds, their conversations sharp and guarded. Elias learned Jasper's habits, the way he hummed old jazz tunes when he thought no one listened, the way his fingers lingered when he changed Elias's bandages. Jasper spoke little of himself, but Elias pieced together fragments. A childhood in foster care, a brother lost to the Syndicate's wars, a life spent fighting to carve out something good in a city that devoured hope. One night, under the flicker of the dying bulb, Elias grabbed Jasper's wrist as he adjusted a bandage. "Why?" Elias demanded, his voice raw. "Why save me? You hate me." Jasper's eyes met his, unguarded for the first time. "I never hated you," he said softly. "I hated what you stood for. But you're more than the Syndicate's dog." The words cut deeper than any blade, stirring something in Elias he'd buried long ago. Vulnerability, need, a flicker of trust. Their dynamic shifted. Elias, stripped of his power, began to see Jasper not as an enemy, but as a man who'd risked everything for him. Late-night talks turned into shared silences, charged with unspoken questions. One evening, as rain battered the safe house roof, Jasper cooked a makeshift meal, burnt rice and canned beans. Elias laughed, a real laugh, for the first time in years. Jasper's smile in response was small, but it lit up the room. Yet danger loomed. The syndicate wasn't fooled forever. Whispers of Elias's survival reached their ears, and bounty hunters began circling. Jasper grew tense, checking the burner phone obsessively. "We need to move," he said one morning, his voice clipped. "There's a safe house in Tacoma. We leave tonight." Elias nodded, but his mind churned. He wasn't used to following, to trusting. Could he trust Jasper? Or was this all a game, a long con to break him completely? As they prepared to flee, Elias found a crumpled photo in Jasper's bag. A younger Jasper with a boy who shared his eyes, both smiling under a cherry blossom tree. "Your brother?" Elias asked, his voice softer than he intended. Jasper's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "He trusted the wrong people," he said. "I won't make that mistake again." The weight of those words settled between them, a promise and a warning. They left under cover of darkness, the city's pulse thrumming around them. Elias's wound ached, but he kept pace, driven by something new, not just survival, but the need to protect Jasper, to prove he was more than the syndicate's weapon. As they crossed a park, cherry blossoms falling like snow, Jasper paused, his breath visible in the cold. "If we get through this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I want a life with you. Not as enemies, not as alphas, just us." Elias's heart pounded. He stepped closer, their hands brushing, the air electric with possibility. For the first time, he didn't feel like an alpha or a fugitive. He felt human, but the distant sound of footsteps shattered the moment. They weren't alone. Jasper grabbed Elias's arm, pulling him behind a cluster of trees as the footsteps grew louder. The park, moments ago a haven, now felt like a trap. Elias's instincts roared to fight, but Jasper's grip was firm, his eyes pleading for silence. "Not now," he mouthed, his breath warm against Elias's ear. Two figures emerged from the shadows, syndicate enforcers, their heavy boots crunching on gravel. Elias's pulse raced, but Jasper's steady presence anchored him. They waited, hearts pounding in sync, until the enforcers passed, their radios crackling with static. The journey to Tacoma was grueling. They moved through back roads and abandoned lots, avoiding main streets where cameras blinked like vultures. Elias's wound throbbed, slowing him down, but he refused to complain. Jasper noticed anyway, slipping an arm around his waist to steady him. "Lean on me," Jasper said, his voice gentle but unyielding. Elias wanted to protest, to reclaim his pride, but the warmth of Jasper's touch silenced him. For once, he let himself be helped. The Tacoma safe house was a rundown apartment above a shuttered bookstore, its walls stained with time and neglect. Jasper secured the door with a chain lock, then checked the windows, his movements precise but tense. Elias watched, noting the lines of exhaustion etched into Jasper's face. "You don't have to do this alone," Elias said, surprising himself. Jasper paused, then offered a tired smile. "I'm not alone anymore, am I?" They settled into a fragile routine. Jasper scavenged supplies while Elias recovered, his strength returning slowly. The apartment became a cocoon, a place where they could be more than their labels. One night, Jasper brought back a battered radio, tuning it to a jazz station. The music filled the room, soft and mournful. "Dance with me," Jasper said, half joking, but his eyes held a challenge. Elias, never one to back down, stood, ignoring the ache in his side. Their dance was clumsy, their bodies brushing awkwardly, but it was real. Elias's hand rested on Jasper's shoulder, and for a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. But reality intruded. Jasper's burner phone buzzed with a message from a contact, a mole in the syndicate. "They know you're alive," the text read. "They're closing in." Jasper's face paled, but he didn't share the message with Elias. Instead, he doubled their security, rigging makeshift alarms from cans and string. Elias sensed the shift. The way Jasper's smiles grew rarer, his touches more guarded. "Tell me what's going on," Elias demanded one night, cornering him against the kitchen counter. Jasper sighed, his shoulders slumping. "They're offering $1 million for your head," he said. "And mine, if they find out I'm hiding you." Elias felt the weight of his own existence, a burden he'd never meant to place on Jasper. "Then let me go," he said, his voice rough. "I won't drag you down with me." Jasper's eyes flashed with anger. "You think I'd let you walk out there to die? After everything?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I didn't save you to lose you, Elias." The air between them crackled, and before Elias could think, he closed the distance, kissing Jasper with a desperation that startled them both. It was fierce, raw, a collision of fear and longing. Jasper kissed back, his hands gripping Elias's shirt, anchoring them together. The kiss broke, leaving them breathless. "We're in this together," Jasper said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Elias nodded, a silent vow. They spent the night planning, mapping escape routes, pooling their knowledge of the syndicate's tactics. Elias shared secrets he'd never told anyone: hidden accounts, safe houses, weaknesses in the syndicate's chain of command. Jasper listened, his strategist's mind already turning the information into a plan. Their bond deepened, forged in shared danger and quiet moments. One afternoon, as sunlight filtered through cracked blinds, Jasper told Elias about his brother, Caleb, who'd been lured into the syndicate's ranks with promises of power. "He was like you," Jasper said, his voice thick with grief. "Strong, stubborn, but good underneath it all. I couldn't save him." Elias reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining. "You're saving me," he said, and meant it. But the syndicate was relentless. A late-night raid forced them to flee the apartment, leaving behind the radio and their fleeting sense of safety. They escaped through a fire escape, the city a maze of danger. Elias's wound reopened, blood seeping through his shirt, but he pushed forward, driven by Jasper's quiet determination. They found temporary refuge in an abandoned warehouse, its rusted beams groaning under the weight of a storm. As they caught their breath, Jasper bandaged Elias's wound again, his hands trembling. "I'm scared," Jasper admitted, his voice barely audible. Elias cupped his face, their foreheads touching. "So am I," he said. "But we'll make it. Together." The warehouse became their temporary fortress, but the syndicate's net was tightening. Elias overheard Jasper on the burner phone, negotiating with his contact for a way out. A boat to Canada, a new identity. The cost was steep, more than Jasper could pay. Elias's heart sank. He knew what he had to do. In the dead of night, he slipped a note into Jasper's bag. "I'm sorry. I can't let you pay for my mistakes." He planned to turn himself in, to buy Jasper's freedom with his own life. But as he stepped toward the door, Jasper's voice stopped him. "Don't you dare," he said, eyes blazing. "You leave, and I'm nothing." Elias froze, Jasper's words pinning him in place. The warehouse was silent except for the drip of rain through a broken skylight, each drop echoing the tension between them. "You don't get to decide my fight," Jasper said, stepping closer, his voice raw with emotion. "I chose you, Elias. Don't make me regret it." For the first time, Elias saw the depth of Jasper's sacrifice, not just money or safety, but his heart, laid bare in a world that punished vulnerability. They stayed in the warehouse, crafting a plan to outsmart the syndicate. Elias's knowledge of their operations was their edge. He sketched out patrol routes and safe houses on a torn map, while Jasper analyzed patterns, his S-alpha mind sharp as a blade. They worked in tandem, their differences, Elias's boldness, Jasper's caution, becoming their strength. But trust was fragile. Elias caught Jasper glancing at the note he'd left, his expression unreadable. "You thought I'd let you go?" Jasper asked, his voice soft but edged with hurt. Elias shook his head. I thought I was protecting you. Their plan hinged on misdirection. Elias suggested leaking false intel to the syndicate, luring their enforcers to a decoy location, an old dockyard in Everett. Jasper refined the idea, using his contact to spread the rumor that Elias was hiding there, alone. The trap was set, but it required splitting up. Elias would plant evidence at the dockyard, while Jasper secured their escape route to the Canadian border. The idea of separating gnawed at Elias, but Jasper's steady gaze reassured him. We'll meet at the border, Jasper said, squeezing his hand. Promise me you'll be there. The dockyard was a ghost town of rusted cranes and rotting piers. Elias moved like a shadow, planting fake documents and a bloodied shirt to sell the ruse. His wound ached, but adrenaline kept him sharp. He was almost done when headlights pierced the fog. Syndicate trucks, too early. Panic surged, but he slipped into the shadows, heart pounding. The enforcers searched the dockyard, their voices cold and methodical. Elias held his breath, praying Jasper's part of the plan was in motion. Miles away, Jasper worked frantically, meeting his contact in a dingy diner on the outskirts of Bellingham. The man, a grizzled smuggler named Rosa, demanded payment up front for the boat. Jasper handed over the last of his savings, his jaw tight. This better work, Rosa muttered, tossing him a burner phone with coordinates. Jasper nodded, but his mind was on Elias. He'd seen the doubt in Elias's eyes, the fear that this was all a trap. Jasper pushed the thought aside. He had to believe in Elias, in them. Back at the dockyard, Elias narrowly escaped, slipping through a drainage pipe as the enforcers closed in. He emerged soaked and shivering, but alive. The burner phone Jasper had given him buzzed, a single text. Border. Midnight. Elias's relief was short-lived. As he made his way north, he spotted a tail, a black SUV, trailing him on the highway. The syndicate hadn't bought the ruse completely. He floored the stolen car he'd taken, weaving through traffic, his mind racing. If they caught him, Jasper would be next. At the border, Jasper waited in a small fishing shack, the air thick with salt and tension. The boat was ready, but Elias was late. Jasper's hands shook as he checked the burner phone, each passing minute eroding his calm. He'd never told Elias the full truth. The syndicate had a personal vendetta against him, too, for betraying them years ago to save his brother. If they failed tonight, it wasn't just Elias's life at stake. Jasper closed his eyes, picturing Elias's face, the way his rare smile softened his sharp edges, the way his touch felt like home. Elias arrived just before midnight, his car skidding into the gravel lot. He stumbled out, blood seeping through his shirt again. Jasper ran to him, catching him as he swayed. "You're late," Jasper said, his voice breaking with relief. Elias grinned weakly. Had to take the scenic route. They boarded the boat, a small vessel barely fit for the open water. Rosa muttered curses but started the engine, guiding them into the dark waves toward Canada. The crossing was tense, the boat rocking against the current. Elias clung to Jasper, his strength fading. "If we don't make it," he whispered, "I need you to know you're the best thing I never deserved." Jasper's throat tightened. "Don't talk like that," he said, his voice fierce. "We're making it. We're starting over." But the distant hum of another boat shattered their hope. The syndicate was closing in. Rosa cursed, pushing the engine to its limit. Elias forced himself to stand, gripping the railing. "Give me a gun," he said, his A-alpha fire reigniting. Jasper hesitated, then handed him a pistol from Rosa's stash. They braced for a fight, their backs to each other, united against the world. The syndicate's boat drew closer, its spotlight cutting through the fog. Shots rang out, splintering the deck. Jasper fired back, his aim steady, while Elias took cover, his vision blurring from blood loss. In the chaos, Jasper shouted coordinates to Rosa, directing her to a hidden cove. The boat veered sharply, throwing their pursuers off course. They reached the cove just as dawn broke, the syndicate's boat lost in the fog. Elias collapsed, his breathing shallow. Jasper knelt beside him, tears mixing with seawater. "Stay with me," he begged, pressing his hands to Elias's wound. Elias's hand found his, weak but sure. "I'm trying," he whispered. "For you." The cove was a sanctuary of jagged rocks and quiet waves, hidden from the world. Rosa secured the boat, her gruff demeanor softening as she saw Elias's condition. "He needs a doctor," she said, tossing Jasper a first aid kit. Jasper worked frantically, cleaning and bandaging Elias's wound, his hands steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. Elias's eyes fluttered, his voice a faint murmur. "You're terrible at this," he teased, a ghost of a smile on his lips. Jasper laughed through tears. "Shut up and stay alive." They reached a small Canadian coastal town by morning, the horizon painted with hope. Rosa's contact, a retired nurse named Clara, met them at a safe house, a cozy cabin nestled in the woods. Clara worked quickly, stitching Elias's wound with practiced hands. "He'll pull through," she said, her voice kind but firm. "But he needs rest. And you," she added, eyeing Jasper, "need to stop carrying the world." Jasper nodded, exhaustion crashing over him like a wave. Days turned into weeks in the cabin. Elias recovered slowly, his A-alpha strength returning in bursts. Jasper stayed by his side, reading to him from tattered paperbacks, their laughter filling the quiet. They talked about everything, dreams they'd buried, fears they'd never voiced. Elias admitted he'd joined the syndicate to escape a broken home, chasing power to fill the void. Jasper shared his guilt over Caleb, how he'd failed to save him. "You're not failing me," Elias said one night, his hand resting on Jasper's. "You're giving me a reason to live." The cabin became their world, a place where labels, A-alpha, S-alpha, Omega, faded. They cooked together, Jasper teaching Elias how to make dumplings, their hands brushing over dough. They walked through the woods, cherry blossoms replaced by pine needles, their steps in sync. One evening, under a sky ablaze with stars, Jasper kissed Elias, slow and deliberate, a promise of forever. Elias kissed back, his hands framing Jasper's face, their pasts dissolving in the warmth of the moment. But the syndicate's shadow lingered. Clara warned them of rumors, bounty hunters sniffing around the border. Jasper's contact sent word. The syndicate was fracturing, weakened by Elias's absence and Jasper's sabotage. It was their chance to end it. Elias, now stronger, proposed a final move. Leaked the syndicate's financial records, exposing their corruption to the authorities. Jasper hesitated, knowing the risk, but Elias's resolve was unshakable. "We finished this," he said. "For us. For Caleb." They worked through the night, hacking into the syndicate's accounts using Elias's old codes. Jasper sent the data to a journalist contact, ensuring anonymity. The leak hit the news days later, dismantling the syndicate's empire. Arrests followed, their former allies turning on each other. Elias and Jasper watched the reports from the cabin, a weight lifting from their shoulders. With the syndicate gone, they faced a new question. What now? Jasper wanted a quiet life, maybe a bookstore like the one they'd hidden above. Elias dreamed of rebuilding, not an empire, but a community, a place for people like them, who'd been chewed up by the world. They compromised, planning a small cafe bookstore in the town, a haven for misfits. Clara offered to invest, her gruff exterior hiding a soft spot for them. On their last night in the cabin, they stood outside, the air crisp with autumn. Elias pulled Jasper close, their breaths mingling. "I was your enemy," Elias said, his voice low. "Now I'm yours." Jasper smiled, his eyes bright with tears. "You were never my enemy. You were my reason." They kissed, the world falling away, their future unwritten but theirs to shape. Years later, their cafe, Whisper's Haven, thrived. It was a place of warmth, where stories were shared over coffee, where people found acceptance. Elias, once a kingpin, now poured lattes, his smile genuine. Jasper, once a lone strategist, laughed freely, his hand often finding Elias's. They'd fought, bled, and loved to get here, their scars a testament to their survival. The cherry blossom signpost from that Seattle park hung above the cafe door, its words faded but clear, sworn enemies, bound by whispers. It was a reminder of their past, their pain, and the love that had saved them. They weren't alphas or omegas anymore. They were Elias and Jasper, two men who'd chosen each other against all odds, proving that even in a world of chaos, love could carve out a home.